on, guys? Matt at Middleton Motorsports here with another episode of Behind the Tune. So up on the dyno today, we have a 2020 Camaro ZL1 1LE. So I'm going to flip the camera around. We'll walk up here and take a look at this thing. So this guy primarily road races this car. I'm pretty sure this car does not see street use at all. So you can see it's some Apex wheels. It's got carbon doors. This car started life as a Callaway 750 package, and he was having some issues road racing and heat with that package. So we took the car in. We actually did another car just like it that he has. It's more of a street car. This is more of the road race car. So like I said, he was having issues with overheating on track. So he was getting a oil temp and coolant temp overheat. The blower was running really hot. So we brought it in, and I took it in. I've taken these, and not bashing Callaway by any means. They build great vehicles. But this is the second one I've seen where somebody's tried to take one to the road course, the other one being a Z06 Corvette, a C7 Z06, and they just run a little too hot, which is typical of the LT4s. If you try to push LT4 stuff too much with the wrong cooling mods and kind of the wrong combination of parts at a road course, you overheat stuff. Overheat the engine coolant, you overheat the oil. The superchargers run too hot. Now, obviously, the Callaways have a Edelbrock style 2300 blower versus the stock LT4 blower. These blowers are definitely more efficient than the LT4 blower, but they still can have heat issues if you don't treat the system properly. So let's climb up here, and I'm going to take a look at what we did to this thing. So the Callaway package is basically the blower, about 12, 13 pounds of boost. I believe they come with like a catback system on them. They have a, sorry guys, I got to get the camera down on the motor here. They'll have some kind of cold air system on them. My thought on road racing these cars is less boost. Less boost is more when it comes to road racing. Too much boost. The first 2 laps you get a lot of power, and then the power will start to drop off as the blower heats up and the motor heats up, the coolant temp heats up, and then it just kind of becomes a downward spiral from there. So my approach to stuff is usually back the blower off. So we actually put a larger pulley on it. The Callaway package comes with a 2.7. I put a 3-inch on it. So, but on top of that, I'm also 5-inch cold air, 103 millimeter KAtech, and I take the snout off this blower and I port the snout to match this throttle body. What that does, just like any other positive displacement screw style blower, any of those style blowers that bolt to the valley of a V8 like this, the inlet restriction, and pretty much any compressor, any restriction on the inlet is going to create heat, and it's going to have to have the blower has to work harder to draw air in, and if the blower has to work harder, it creates more heat. So larger pulley, but at the same time we are making the inlet tract more efficient, and we actually are seeing the same amount of boost at peak as we were before. So I did put this car on the dyno baseline before we did anything, and we'll look at the graphs in a little bit. So I was able to track, I was able to data log all the data and look at the boost and everything. We were seeing about 12-ish pounds. Now I have done a couple pulls on this so far. So, kind of establish a baseline on pump gas. So we did the RotoFab 5-inch, the big gulp. We did the KAtech 103. I ported the inlet. We did a 3-inch pulley up from a 2.7. We put 2-inch American Racing long tube headers on it. And we changed the exhaust. We actually put a full American Racing system on it. He had an AWE on it before, and so we changed the exhaust system around so it's full 3-inch all the way back, and we did add a DSX flex fuel sensor. So luckily the Callaway cars already come with kind of a fuel pump booster setup, so the in-tank pump is good. Now when I add flex fuel to these cars with the stock cam, I gotta be mindful on how far up the ethanol content we can go. Usually I end up about 40-some%. I like to see lower 40s. That gets us pretty far from pump gas. Now he is running 93, so we are making some okay power with just basically a supercharger swap from the LT4 blower with bolt-ons on top of that. But ethanol is always a good thing, and I try to run as much as I can on these setups. Some of the customers don't want to have to blend ethanol. They just want to run one or the other. You know, they don't want to have to blend and stuff. This guy was okay with being able to go like a 50-50 mix of E85, like pump E85, and just high octane 91 or 93. That'll get you about, you know, where we're at in the southern Wisconsin area. Our pump E85 is usually 75 to 78%. So if you kind of go 50-50, you usually end up about that 40%, depending on if you're starting with 93, 10%, or we also do have 91 non-ethanol in this area quite a bit. So it can vary, but if you get up to that upper 30s, lower 40s, you're getting pretty far as how much timing and how much timing I can add, and the cooling effect of the ethanol. So yeah, so like I said before, I've done some pulls on pump. I've got the pump gas tune pretty much dialed in, and this is where we're at so far. I'm pretty happy with this number. I'm pretty conservative on timing here. I like to be conservative on the timing on pump gas with these things because the temperature in which these cars run, these LT4s, they are a higher compression engine. They're 10.5 to 1 for a boosted engine. And the temperature, when we start talking oil and coolant temperatures, and a lot of the street drag guys don't really pay attention to that, but when you start seeing coolant temperatures of 225, 230, and oil temperatures of 280, 290, when you're on pump gas, your timing requirements change quite a bit. So I like to be conservative on the timing. Now I do have modifiers in the tune that can take timing away as coolant temperature rises, and I do that. But I just like to have a safety margin, because you get out on a 90-degree day and you're doing 20 to 30-minute track sessions, you are going to see elevated coolant temperatures in the 230 range, low 230s, high 220s, and your oil temperatures will be 290 on one of these LT4s with this much power. So the timing at that point, especially if you're on pump gas, is greatly reduced. You're down probably 3 to 4 degrees of timing versus where you'd be like at 190 degree, 190 on both temperatures. A lot of people don't really pay attention to that because you're doing street pulls or drag racing. You're typically just at, you know, thermostatic temperature, because you're not doing these extended wide open throttle on and off the throttle like a road race situation. Road racing situations, you know, road racing tuning changes stuff quite a bit. So I got to be extra safe on that stuff. So with this being said, I'm going to bring up the baseline, and this is where I was at with just as it came in with the Callaway setup. So like I said, we did, and I'll go over some data logs at the end of the video after we do some pulls. I did lose some boost down here, but I still gained power. Obviously, we're much more efficient. I can put a lot more timing in it. I was able to add about 5 degrees of timing down here from the blue run to the red run. So for torque, and I'm comparing torque here. And you can see too where it's just making power everywhere. Now obviously the headers are a big part of that, but the whole system, the whole package that we did to this kind of contributes to this whole increase in power. The more efficient inlet and the more efficient exhaust. Even though we're turning the blower quite a bit slower. You know, I did lose about 1.5 pounds of boost down here, but again, I picked up, you know, quite a bit of torque. So 592 to 644, and we picked up, you know, 51 horsepower up at the top end here. So far so good. I'm happy with where we're at with this. This is actually making a little bit more than I actually expected on pump gas. I just put, about 3 gallons of E85 in it. It was only at just below a quarter tank, so I am seeing about 42%. I just ran it and warmed the car up, so the car is fully warm. So I'm gonna set the camera down. We're gonna do another pull, and this will be my first pull on E. I did did a couple little quick wide open throttles at, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 RPM just to see where I was at, to make sure that everything was kind of looking good. The fueling looks pretty close. We might have to add a little bit of fuel, but I'll take you through that when we get to that point. So I'm gonna set the camera down over there, and we'll rip a pull on this thing, and we'll see where we're at with the first pull on E. All right, guys, looks like we've got a little adjustment to do. So we didn't really pick up anything so far. I'm gonna leave the fans running, so bear with me. So green run is what I just did. Looks like we kind of lost a little bit up here. Doesn't look like I picked up the timing that I wanted in the data log, so we'll go take a look at that again. I just glanced at it quick before I picked the camera up. So bear with me, I lift this up here. So it looks like, all right, so taking a look at this, okay, so looks like what happened is that I was richer than I thought, and I got some fuel trim coming in here. So on GMs, and I've mentioned this before, if the long-term fuel trims are adding, so I'll take you back here. So you can see before I hit wide open throttle, which is like right here, you can see before that, my fuel trims are positive. So what GM strategy does is if you've got positive fuel trims like that, and you can see right there I go wide open, you can see the fuel trims are still there. That long-term fuel trim will get added onto the wide open, the power enrichment. So you can see I'm rich. I'm too rich for a DI. So that's where my loss came in. So we're gonna have to fix that. So I gotta go back and I actually have to lean out, and it might sound a little counterintuitive, but to lean out the wide open throttle, I gotta get this part throttle fueling fixed. So I can kind of take myself back here on where I was warming the car up, and you can see I got positive fuel trim. So I data log mass airflow on GM stuff. I'll data log mass airflow by fuel trim, and yeah, you can see all this red here, it was adding. So I'll have to go back through the MAF curve and add in a little bit. Now it was adding a little bit on the pump gas, and basically it was this is a Monday today for us. Last Friday night I was doing the pump gas tuning, and it was getting kind of late and I was kind of rushing through it, so I didn't fully add all this in. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna probably add about 5% throughout this MAF curve. I'm gonna actually go back, and this might get a little long in the tooth for some of you guys, but I'm gonna kind of show you here. I didn't start the data logger till I was really rolling the car, so, but again, you can see that my fuel trims down here are positive, so I gotta fix that. So I'm gonna open up this file. I was looking at some other stuff, so we're gonna go to Camaro. I file everything by last name on these guys. So this is his race car. We're gonna go ECM. So on these cars, on this car I read all the modules individually, so I'm gonna go engine module. We're gonna open this up. Okay, and we're gonna go airflow, we're gonna MAF. So I'm gonna probably, just as a rough quickie, just start. I'm just looking at my mass airflow frequency. I'm probably gonna add, starting pretty low. We'll take a look at because even down here it looks like I was trying to add down in the low 2000s, even just under 2000 hertz for the frequency. So I'll probably add it all the way up to, and you can really see in here, we're like cruising, it was adding quite a bit in there too. So I might just go ahead and throw like 5% at it, all the way up from. So typically on these cars, cruising frequencies are between mid 2000s and 5000. That'll be like light cruise, and then like even some light acceleration. Once you get above like 6000 hertz, that's starting to probably tip into about some boost. And again, that's specific to these LT4 Camaros. So obviously it can change all over depending on the car and the supercharger and the MAF size and all that stuff. So I'm talking specific to this car. I've done a lot of these 6th gen Camaros, so I kind of have an idea. So I'm going to probably start somewhere down here, and I'm just going to drag this across. I'm going to probably take it up to about, well, maybe 6000 hertz. I'm going to add 5% to that. Multiply that by 105, and then usually what I do is I go back through and I look at my MAF curve here, and you can see there's this little step here. I'll usually just smooth this by hand. You don't have to do this, but I open up a lot of MAF curves from other shops, other tuners, and a lot of guys don't go through and do this, but I get kind of OCD about this stuff, and I like having my MAF curve nice and smooth. Because usually then as you're running up and down the throttle, you won't get sudden kind of jumps in the MAF, and you can get kind of weird fuel trims that way. So far this is looking pretty good. So obviously I have a pretty smooth MAF curve on this thing. The 5-inch cold air, you're going to have a little bit of it kind of moving up and down, but just because at lower speed there's a little bit of turbulence in that big huge tube, there's not a lot of laminar flow. It can be kind of turbulent because the air is moving kind of slow at low engine speeds and low loads. I'm also going to kind of look at my timing here. I am at 40% ethanol, so we'll look at that quick. Yeah, so you can see here 40%, 41.6%. So I'm seeing 23 degrees there. I might leave that. Let's just take a look. I might add a little timing on top of that. Usually I try to add about 5 degrees. This is my flex fuel adder. So as you add ethanol, it's going to add up to this amount depending on the flex fuel multiplier, which then depends on ethanol composition or alcohol composition. So you can see I've got this table modified because on this car, obviously, we're never going to see more than 50% ethanol. So I want to set this up so at 50% ethanol, he's getting the most out of that table, this table. So, and we're pretty close to that. We're at 42%. What I could do is just come back to here, and I might edit this axis to 45. Now again, you guys might be looking at this like, oh my gosh, he's adding all this timing at just 45% ethanol. It's not, it's not E70 or E85 full. You'd be surprised at how much timing you can add even at like 20 or 30% ethanol. And again, since I was conservative on the timing on the pump gas of just straight gasoline, I was pretty conservative on it. I can add quite a bit of timing. These at this boost level. So that pull, I was about 11. Yeah, that's getting pretty close to 12 pounds right there, 178 kPa. That's right about 12 pounds. These LT4s will take 24, 25 degrees of timing, even at a lower ethanol content like E40 or E50. So, and they'll make power all the way up into that point. It's not just blindly adding timing. As you add timing, even up through that 24 degrees, 25 degrees, they will continue to make power. That boost level is about all I like to go, 24, maybe 25 at the very tippy top. After that, the gains are pretty small, like you're gaining 3, maybe 5 horsepower per degree of timing. Once you start getting those gains that small, especially again on something that's being road raced, 5 extra horsepower is not going to make or break a lap on a road course. So I err to the conservative side and just leave it. So that might bring the timing up a little bit, maybe 23.5, but more so maybe down in here too. But again, I don't like messing with the timing too much until I get the fueling where I want it, and then we can kind of play with timing. So I'm gonna stop the camera while this loads, so you guys don't have to watch this load because it takes a minute or so to do this, and then we'll make another pull and see where we're at. All right, now we're where we want to be. That's what I wanted to see. So orange line is what we just did, 664 and 660 torque. I'm going to call 659, we'll call it. That's what I was after. So let's go take a look at the data log. So what was going on in that last pull, and I didn't mention in the video, is because it was so rich, and like I was talking before earlier in the video when we were looking at the engine, I get to the limit of that high pressure fuel pump. So when you push the richness, you push the fueling too far, the high pressure fuel pump pressure starts to drop, the pulse width starts to increase, and then that just downward spirals. So lot better now. So I didn't mention it on the data log before, but my pulse width was well over 6 milliseconds, which is way too high on these DI cars. I've talked about this in these videos before. You got to keep these pulse width below 6 milliseconds, and preferably, and I talk milliseconds. I know I'll get bashed by other tuners by talking milliseconds, but again, when I'm talking specific to this platform, I know you can talk duty cycle, but At the top, I just don't like going past 5.5. Mid-range, you can be a little higher. But this is much better. I'm up there, you know, so down here I'm flirting with 100, and you can see that, and I'll highlight it, this high pressure fuel pump duty cycle. You can see it's kind of flirting with 100. 130 degrees is the most you can do. The lobe on the cam is a triangle. And when you talk degrees, they're talking camshaft degrees. So one lobe, basically, and this is a simplified explanation, one lobe is 130 degrees, 130 times 3 is 360, so one full cycle. So each lobe, basically what they're doing is saying the duty cycle, once it gets to that point, the valve on the high pressure fuel pump is shut for the entire portion of the lobe lift. If I'm explaining that correctly, since there's 3 lobes. When the little solenoid is shut, that means that the fuel, basically it's shut while that piston is compressing the fuel the whole time. And I know I'm doing a poor explanation of that, but basically 130 is max. So you can see we're flirting with that right here. But up at the top, it comes back around, and yeah. So we're still a little high here. I was a little lean. I might add some pressure to this, just a little bit. I don't like doing a lot of that, but we're pretty close. I'm almost happy with this as it is. It's a smidge lean, but again, these LT4s, they don't mind being lean, especially on ethanol blends like this. You can run them up into the 12s for air-fuel ratio. Now again, I do lambda. Typically I like to try to be at 0.83 on these things on a little bit of ethanol like this. So you can see I'm a little lean there. I'm a little lean, yeah, it's not too bad. But you can see now my fuel trims are 0. That's where I want to be there. And looking at the dyno graph, if you guys notice that at the top, I don't know if you can see it now, probably not. I get a little spike right where I have this little timing spike. Right at 6,000, I'm getting a subsequent spike in the dyno, in the power curve. So I might try to add some timing in this area, because I am getting kind of a jump in timing right here. So I got a couple things to go over here, and the first thing I'm going to do is, now some tuners don't do this. I have done this so many times that I don't, yeah, sorry, I need to go to a different section here. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time, and I got to go to fuel pump control here. So I keep hitting the wrong stuff. Okay, so on this table here, I will add a little bit of pressure to it. And again, hopefully this isn't getting too long of a video for you guys, but I like bumping this pressure up a little bit. And again, when we're trying to push the limits of the stock LT4 fuel systems with the stock cam, the high pressure pump is kind of what hits it. Well, they'll usually hit it at about the same time. So there I just bumped it up a smidge. I bumped it up basically 1 megapascal. So that's, yeah, I'm going to try that. I'm just going to go up just that. So that's not that much. It's just, yeah. If I'm mathing right, I think that's almost 150 PSI is what I'm adding on that high pressure fuel pump. So, I'm going to look at the spark table. I might leave the fueling alone for now. It's a little lean, but I'm okay with that. 0.84. Like it was blipping a little, 0.85, even a 0.86 there. Yeah, but I did change the pressure, and we're going to be, you know, obviously it's going to tax the pump a little more, but we have a little bit of room on the pump, and we're just pretty much out of injector. So I'd rather bring the pump up near its limit and have the injector just under the limit. It'll be happier that way. Luckily, he's not going to road race it, and you know, right now I got the doors open, and it's probably 50 degrees, 45, 50 degrees in the shop, and we're not going to see this kind of air density over the summer when he's road racing it. So I'm going to take a look at the timing curve here, what I got. So we're going to take a look at this little bump. So it's right about 6,000. It's going from, you know, we're going from at 5,600, we're at 21.5, 6,000, we're at 23. So we're kind of getting a big increase. Load is, yeah, 147, 145, okay. And sorry guys if I'm kind of flipping back and forth because I'm talking and doing this. Normally I'm used to just kind of putting my head down and going. Let's take a look at my flex wheel table. Okay, well, interesting. So I might have to hunt down where I'm getting that timing increase from. I might just have to add a little bit on the main spark table. But yeah, basically I'm getting a 5,400. I'm getting a 2-degree bump over a 500 RPM range, which is kind of I like to have a little bit smoother transition than that. And you can see here I'm only increasing about a degree from this 19.5 to the 20. And this is the base table. That other table's adding on top of this. So basically what I'm going to do at this point, guys, I'm going to shut the camera off so I can work through this, and because otherwise I'm going to sit here and not be saying anything, and it might get a little boring. So hang tight, and I'll adjust this, and we'll be back. We're still heading in the right direction here. Get the camera centered. All right, 677. So obviously we picked up even more. Down that fuel pressure up a little bit. Looks like it smoothed out the air fuel. We're still at the limit of this high pressure pump, but we'll go look at the data log and we can talk about that. So this car, I think we could probably, what we're probably going to want to do is not run 40% ethanol. I'm probably going to have them dial it back just a smidge, because we are right on the edge of this high pressure pump with the air fuel where I like it. So let's take a look at this. So lambda, you can see that's where I want to see it on this car. It's right where I want to see it. It's just a smidge lean, but I'm happy with that. That's actually pretty good. But you can see our pulse width, it's riding that line. I mean, I'm going to take a look at the pump duty here. Yeah, you can see we're right at 130. It's pretty much just riding 130. So we're at the limit. The rail pressure is dropping. So basically two things. Now, like I said before, you know, the shop is chilly right now. I got the door open. It's chilly outside. So the air density is high. The density of the air is high. The density altitude is low. The DA is probably, right now in the shop, is probably 0 or below. Probably not a situation he'd be road racing in, but for a margin of a cushion of, you know, error here, I'd like to probably see less ethanol in this car. We're at 41%, just dropping the ethanol down into the mid-30s. I don't think we'd lose any power per se, maybe 10 horsepower, but I don't even know about that. Yeah, this is right at the limit. Sorry guys, I'm kind of thinking, talking, and looking at this data log all at the same time, because this video I'm kind of taking you along right through my process here, so you guys can kind of see behind the scenes here. I like doing this for you guys, and Some guys, you might just look at the data, you know, look at the dyno graphs, listen to the beginning of the video where I explain what we did to the car, what's done to the car, and then that's it. That's all you care about. Some people might want to see these data logs and kind of watch me go through the process here. So basically, I'm happy with this, where the air fuel is and the timing is. I'm not super happy about the high pressure pump, and that's just a function of having 40% ethanol in it. And when I set this car up, I didn't think it would quite make this much power. I was thinking more like 650-ish, not 670. And I knew we'd be kind of near the limit. Basically what I was after is his other car, which is also a ZL1 1LE, just like this. It has the stock blower on it. It has the same mods this car does pretty much, but it has the stock supercharger on it. So that car makes 630 something to the tire. It was on our channel before. It was a black one just like this, just didn't have carbon doors and it had an interior in it. And that car, basically, I think I was at 45% ethanol, everything was happy, but it was making 50 less horsepower, so, or 40 some less horsepower. So this one, because we're making that extra power, because it has that bigger blower on it, even though we're about the same boost, well, I take that back, the other car was about 10, 11 pounds of boost. Bigger blower, more air, more fuel. I thought maybe with this bigger pulley on this car, with that 3-inch pulley, we'd slow the blower down far enough, but we're still seeing this 11-ish, you know, at the very end it's spiking, you know, that's over 12 pounds of boost. That's at the very tippy top where, you know, this thing's gonna shift right there. So we're still seeing 12 pounds at the top. So, and again, the air density's high, and we're gonna see some decent stuff out of this blower, and you know, that's why my power numbers are pretty nice. So, in the end, basically, I'm happy with where we're at with all of this, but we are on the limit, just a little past even, of this high pressure pump. So, this car is gonna have to run probably like an E30, maybe a 35% blend. He does have one of these deals, these Banks deals, so he can monitor the ethanol content. And I was going back to his other car. I was trying to set it up so both cars, he goes to the track, they can have gas cans or fuel cans full of all the same blend. The other car has a flex fuel sensor on it, and so both cars could just run 35% ethanol or 30% ethanol, and he's going to be happy. Again, I have enough experience with this stuff where I know that he can dial the ethanol down a little bit, and this is going to be perfectly in the safe range then, as far as this high pressure pump goes. Because we are right on the limit. I mean, it's riding, you know, that rail pressure is, you know, here at the top, I'm commanding 21, and we're seeing 19, and we're talking megapascals, and that's a metric unit of pressure. 100. So kilopascals is, you know, the map. So 100 kilopascals is atmosphere, which is 14.7. Megapascals is just a multiplier of that up. So I think 20 megapascals is like 2,900 PSI. So I'm commanding a little bit more than that, you know, up just over 3,000 PSI. So typically those pumps are happy at those pressures. It makes the injector, you know, the injector's happy as far as pulse width, but it does tax the pump a little more, like I said, when I was making that adjustment. So, but like I said, I'd rather have the high pressure pump taxed than the injector duty cycle. The injector duty cycle starts going too far and power just tanks, and that's where you start, yeah, you're getting into trouble with that type of stuff. So, but again, we're gonna dial the ethanol content back on this car, and it'll be happy. So I'm gonna go out. I'm not gonna do any more pulls on it. That's gonna be it for this one for dyno. I'm gonna hit these fans, and we can look at the dyno graphs one more time and kind of go over exactly what they all are. Bear with me here. These fans are loud. All right, so dyno graphs. Again, the 586, the red, that was our baseline. That was before we did any work to it. That's how he had the car before, with the Callaway package on it. And I know I was mentioning how cool it is in the shop. When we did this baseline, it was also cool in the shop. It was a chilly day. It was a couple. We're in February here. This was a couple, 3 months back when we did that baseline, and it was cold then too. It was December. So we had very similar conditions looking at intake temps and stuff like that when I was looking at the old data log. The 637, that's the pump fuel. That was my pump gas tune. That was 93 octane. That was my final on pump gas. That's where I ended up, and I was happy with that, 644 torque. That's the blue run. You can see that over that, just that gain over the red, our baseline, big jump in power and torque. The green line, that 664, that was that second pull. So I took that one pull away that I didn't gain any power on the ethanol, the first ethanol pull I did, just to help clutter this less. That 64 was before I made that fuel pressure change, where it was a little too rich and the pressure, the pulse width was way too high. And so we adjusted that and we arrived at our 677. So I'm calling that our final. So we picked up 91 horsepower with some pretty moderate changes to this thing. So, you know, exhaust, headers, the, like I said, the RotoFab, the KAtech in throttle body, porting the inlet, flex fuel, and slowing the blower down quite a bit. So, you know, like I said, we went from a 2.7 to a 3.0, which is what this is. So that's pretty cool. So again, the objective of all this, in the end, was to get this car to run cooler. So slowing that blower down and headers does quite a bit on these cars, because less heat in the blower, and we don't all have all that manifold and factory catalytic converter heat up near the engine bay. We put all that down under the car, and it reduces the underhood temperatures. It reduces the cylinder head temperatures, which, again, anytime we can cool any part of this system down, it's going to run, the whole system's going to run cooler. Everything's bolted together and touching each other, and anytime we can cool any of this down, it's going to help. So I know this car will go out and he will be able to make long sessions, 20-minute, half-hour sessions on a hot track day, and he's going to enjoy it. Like I said, I've done packages similar to this on this supercharger, and we've gone from 2 laps into overheat to full 20-minute sessions on hot days. So I know this is a proven combination. I know it works, and I like seeing the smile it puts on these guys' faces when they can take a car like this that they bought, you know, and they can run full sessions with it, and no issues at the track all day, and they have a full day at Road America or wherever they're going to go across the country and race and have fun, because that's the objective of all this, right, guys? All right. So that'll do it for this video. Again, check back on our channel for more stuff, and we'll keep putting these videos out for you guys. And I like seeing comments. Make sure if you guys do watch this video and you want to ask a question or have comments on what I did on the tune, don't be afraid to comment on it, good or bad. I don't care. I like seeing it. So we'll catch you on the next video, and we'll talk to you guys later.